Michael and Chucky too. Slash-a-Holics unite, this one's for you. Calling all Slash-a-Holics, come and dive in. Out of brick terror where the nightmares spin. Every mask and blade, every scream, every fight. Calling all Slash-a-Holics, stay up all night.
Murder Report, an original novel by James Acosta. Chapter 7. It took about 2 whole hours to return to the asylum. They found Joe standing right next to a paint canvas. He was painting what appeared to be a knight on horseback, resembling a chess piece. As he was putting his final touches onto his painting, Joe turned from the canvas to notice that Carol and Sam returned for the interview. Carol could tell that Joe seemed to be rather agitated. "Where the hell have the both of you been? You're supposed to help me finish our interview so we can be done with these ghosts forever. You guys just got up and took off without so much as a reason why." Carol spoke up first. "You see, we had to leave in a hurry. You have ghosts haunting you, yes. However, I want you to know they are also haunting me too. I have no idea why they are. They just are. We happened to learn about that one ghost, Melanie, that is protecting you. She thinks that me and Sam are threats to you. Melanie tried to run our car off the road, and she even tried to possess me. We have these candles, and they are designed to keep all spirits away until they burn down. This time we won't have any interruptions as well." Joe looked at Carol with amazement, but also with intrigue. "Well, okay then. We can start immediately. So please, you two have a seat and we can continue." They both took a seat. Sam pulled out his mini camera and began recording again. Joe continued with his story. "As I have mentioned before, I love to play chess, and in chess you need to strategize all the time. My favorite chess piece is not the queen, though she is the most powerful piece on the board. Yet you see that mine is the knight. The knight can move 2 down and 1 forward in any direction, basically making a small L. With that piece you can really put off some good moves." Sam interrupted Joe after realizing that they still hadn't lit another candle. "Damn, Carol, we forgot to light that candle. Please, hurry and do it." Carol scrambled to open her purse and pull out yet another candle. She lit it before any more craziness could happen. Once things settled down, Joe continued speaking. "As I was saying, if you play the knight piece correctly, it always works out for you in the long run. I have always correlated my murders with chess. That is why you've seen me painting the knight on that canvas over there." Joe pointed the finger at his recent painting. "Much like the rest of my murders, I had to plan this one out. A side note, yes, I plotted all of my murders ahead of time, you see. However, there was one where it wasn't planned and it just sorta happened. It came time when I soon realized that the runway for my airplane was getting torn up and worn down by the elements. There were potholes and cracks running all up and down the runway. So I figured it would be time to get it repaired and was in the market for a construction crew. This was to be no easy task, to be honest. I would have to have them bring all their crew and equipment to the island, much like I sorta had to do last time for the museum I had built. I needed to have a construction crew brought out to my island. I hopped online and looked for an adequate crew that could get the job done just right. It took me about 2 weeks, but I found one. It was an independent company called Harry's Construction. Harry was the owner and boss of the construction crew. When I decided that I wanted this company, I gave him a phone call and told him what I wanted. So about a week later they arrived on a boat along with all their equipment. It wasn't cheap to ferry them to my island. The whole project ended up costing me around $20,000. I also offered him and his entire crew rooms to sleep in and meals 3 times a day until the job was completed. It was going to take about another 2 weeks for them to finish. That was, if the weather was good during that time. So the first week went well as they started the job right away. They brought along with them a cement roller, tools, and other construction equipment, and bags of cement. They moved over all the cracks and fixed major potholes all along the runway. They worked all day until dark. At night they would all meet up with me in the dining hall for their dinners. I did not meet with them for the other 2 meals because I was busy doing other things. Well, it was at the first dinner that I actually got to meet Harry and his crew. I soon realized that I didn't care for Harry at all. He was a jerk unlike any other I have ever met. The guy was a pig to begin with. As he ate, Harry talked with his mouth full. Another thing he would do was smack his lips while eating, and when he burped out loud, Harry wouldn't even excuse himself. I was the one who was unfortunate enough to sit right next to Harry. These things were all some of my biggest pet peeves. He would be disrespectful to his crew. He would even threaten to fire them over the dumbest of reasons. From what I understood, these guys needed the job because the majority of them had families to take care of. I learned all this from Harry's actions all in one evening. However, I just chose to ignore it. I figured they would be gone as soon as they finished their job. I soon learned, however, that this was to be a nightly behavior at the dinner table. That's when I decided to sit as far away from him as possible from that point on. During this time, as they worked away to finish the job, my urge to kill someone was coming and going, ebbing and flowing. I still hadn't found my next future victim. However, I soon found out for myself who that would be. One day, as they were working, I was feeling bored in my library. After reading a couple of chapters in one of my books, something stirred inside of me to be a little snoopy. I was curious to find out more about this Harry fellow, and decided to head to his room when he was not there. I figured a good way to learn about someone is to go through their belongings. Yes, I know it wasn't my business, but they were staying at my house. I figured that justified it enough. I made my way over to his room and looked to see if anybody was around. Once I knew the coast was clear, I entered his room quietly and closed and locked the door. I went through his things. It was an invasion of privacy, but I felt compelled to do it. First thing I found was his cell phone that was lying on the bed. I walked over and picked it up. The fool didn't have a password on his lock screen, so anyone could easily access his phone if they really wanted to. I decided to see who his contacts were and to check his text messages. I was shocked to find when I did. He had a few texts from a few different people. One of them was from who I presumed to be his wife. I read a couple that were sent from her. The first message read, "Where did you go? It's been 4 months that I haven't seen or heard from you. You just up and took off without so much as a goodbye. How could you just leave me and your daughter like this? I'm worried sick about you. I don't know if you're dead or just another deadbeat dad." There was at least one more. "How dare you do this to us? I just found out that you are still alive and that you abandoned us. I found out from your current girlfriend that you are now with her. She ran into me the other day and seemed to recognize me, and then threatened me to stay away from you, and that she would be a better mom to my own child than I ever could be. You are a lying, no-good piece of shit. I'll be going after you for child support." That was all from her. I felt a small sensation of anger. Now, it's crazy, I know. I have gleefully killed innocent people at this point. You're probably thinking, how could I have any compassion for a thing like this? However, it's true. This sort of thing made my blood boil. I'm a serial killer, yes, but if I ever had kids, I could never be a deadbeat dad to them. If you haven't noticed by now, I don't murder kids. Nope, I will never do it. I mean, I've never done that either. Joe stared directly into Carol's eyes. She stared back at him. "Somehow I believe you. Please continue with the story." Joe nodded and frowned. "Well, me being a serial killer, I am indeed insane. I still won't ever expect anyone to agree with me." Carol could not help but agree. "Yeah, deadbeat dads are the worst. I can't stand them. I am curious, though, as to what happened next." "Well, Carol, the next few texts weren't any better. The next one was, from what I could tell, was a bookie. The bookie was looking to see if Harry wanted to make another bet for a couple of $1,000 on some upcoming dog fights. My blood boiled more. Odd for a murderer to show some compassion towards animals, right? Dog fights or any other event where animals are forced to fight against each other are just wrong and barbaric on so many levels. What angered me was some of Harry's responses for his bookie. Harry planned on ripping all of his crew off for the current job that they were working on. He wanted to keep about 90% of the profits and only pay his crew the 10%. Harry was going to be getting heavily into gambling with his newfound profits. So I thought to myself, this piece of shit is a deadbeat dad, and he also planned on ripping off all of his crew. This man was a stain on the earth, and he soon needed to be removed. Sam couldn't help but think of the irony of all this. I decided then that he was going to be my next victim. I made it back to the library and went back to my reading again, as if nothing out of the ordinary happened. I knew that Harry was my next victim, but I had to plan on how I was going to do it. On the last week that they worked on my runway, I brainstormed my plan on how to kill Harry. I also decided that I was going to quietly slip each worker about $2,000 each to thank them for all of their hard work. I knew it was going to be very expensive to do all this, but I wasn't sweating it, because they worked their asses off and deserved it, especially when their boss was going to rip them all off. On the final day of them wrapping the project up, I had one of my servants personally invite them all into the dining hall to meet up with me. I also made sure that their boss was not invited. When they all arrived, I thanked them, one by one, all of them, for their hard work, and told them that they are all getting a big cash bonus soon. They all had big smiles on their faces with the news. I was actually happy to help them out. When they all were ready to pack all of their stuff back up and have it transported back into the boat, I made my way to their boss and gave him the money I had promised to pay him. I gave him the most passive-aggressive smile I had ever given anyone in my entire life, and I shook his hand very hard, along with squeezing his hand extra tight. I also told him that I wanted to buy his steamroller from him for about $1,500. He took my offer without hesitation. I figured he would, because he probably planned on gambling with the cash anyhow. The final thing I did was invite him to come back to my island about a week later. I told him that I wanted him to try one of the finest wines I had, for it was about 60 years old, and I wanted to discuss with him about future projects that I had in mind for him and his crew. He, of course, took me up on my offer without hesitation. I was also pleased with the idea that he wanted to come back so soon. The workers all left about 2 hours after that. Soon the time came. The day before Harry would return, I again paid all of my servants to leave again for the next couple of days. I made sure to have a huge meal prepared that same day before they left. The following day I had everything ready for Harry. When he finally showed up to my island, Harry was all alone. I had him fly in by helicopter. When he arrived, I greeted him, and we proceeded to the dining room. I grabbed the expensive and oldest wine that I had promised him, and poured him a big glass. I went into the kitchen and grabbed the meal, a 20-ounce New York steak with some mashed potatoes and even shrimp on the side. I poured just enough chloroform into his wine so it would knock him out fast. I brought our meals out, and I made sure to give his tainted food to him first. I placed my own plate on the table. We discussed future projects as we ate. 5 minutes later he was out, just as I had planned. I hurried outside and grabbed a big blue tarp and took it out to the runway. that his crew recently worked on under Harry's direction. I rolled the tarp out into a big square. It was about 20 feet long and wide. I made sure to place a giant rock on each corner of the square. I was pretty much using them as paperweights. I went back to the garage and grabbed a metal baseball bat and made my way back to Harry, who was passed out with his face squarely planted into his half-eaten steak and mashed potatoes. He was still breathing as I grabbed him by his legs to avoid having him hit his head on the floor. I tucked the bat under my armpits as I dragged him all the way out to the blue tarp. Once I finally made it there, the sun was setting, which was perfect to set the perfect mood for the kill. I laid him down right in the middle of the tarp, and I sat right next to him, cross-legged, holding my bat. I patiently waited for him to wake up, and also pulled out my cell phone to record the whole event. When he finally woke up about 30 minutes later, Harry started to look around, but he was groggy and confused. I stood up over him. He looked at me and asked me what was going on. I scolded him for being a piece of shit, being a deadbeat dad, being a dog killer, and how it was awful that he participated in those fights, and how he wanted to rip off his crew. Harry tried to beg and ask for forgiveness. I told him that it was too late for that. I took the bat and hit him hard in the shins. Harry cried out in pain, and I proceeded to strike his shins repeatedly. He howled out in agony, louder and louder each time I brought the bat crashing down. I was wearing a big smile on my face the whole time and was overwhelmed with joy, knowing that I was causing a man like that so much pain. After several good swings in, I heard his shin bones crack. The guy was screaming out in so much agony that I was surprised that he was still alive. I could also tell that the blood was smearing the inside of his pant legs. I stopped swinging for a second and stood a couple of feet back. I told him as a sick joke not to go anywhere because I'd be right back. I made my way over to the steamroller I purchased from him earlier. During the week of my planning, I made sure to study how to operate the equipment, the whole 9 yards. I hopped on and turned on the engine and slowly rolled my way over to Harry. Joe had a smirk on his face. I must warn the both of you, this next part isn't going to be pleasant. Carol looked at Sam with a worried look. Sam expressed a look of disgust on his face. He didn't think he was ready to hear what was next. I rolled ever so closer to Harry's position. The front part of the roller wheels met Harry's feet. It was at this point that Harry screamed out loud in fear. He kept asking repeatedly to let me spare his life. This, that, and the other. I continued rolling over his feet and then his legs. Harry had let out one loud, blood-curdling scream in pain. It was unlike anything I had ever heard in my entire life. I wanted to take my time with Harry because I didn't want to put him out of his misery just yet. I wanted to relish this moment because it wasn't every day I got to hear this sort of music to my ears. Well, anyway, I rolled the roller back slightly, just enough to roll off his now crushed legs and feet. I shut off the roller for a second and hopped off the seat, and I made my way over to Harry. He must have been in shock by now. I knelt down and put my ear up to him. After a few more moments of hearing him suffer, I was satisfied, and I hopped back onto the seat of the steamroller to put his lights out for good. I turned the engine back on and fired her up. I rode steadily up to his middle part of the body and crushed his upper ribs and his arms. I wanted to see his head being crushed like a watermelon, so I hopped off the roller and ran ahead of Harry in the roller. I made it in time to see the roller go over his head and saw his brain just shoot out, sorta like if you took a gusher fruit snack and... Whoa! Okay, please, Carol said desperately as she raised her right hand. Joe just looked at Carol and was blushing, oddly enough. Sorry, I got a little excited there. I suppose it was a nasty mess for some, but it was a pure, utter sight of delight for me. Carol and Sam immediately vacated Joe's presence and ran to the nearest restrooms as they were both feeling sick to their stomach. They simultaneously threw up and couldn't believe what they both had just heard. Carol knew it was going to be bad, however, not this damn bad. It took them both a few moments to collect themselves before they went back into Joe's presence once more. Once they both made it back, Joe had a big smile on his face again. It seems to me you both have some weak stomachs, he laughed. Sam quipped, Just shut the hell up. Don't worry about us, man. Joe smiled and said, Okay then, very well. I'll continue. Well, once the roller was done rolling over Harry's worthless human carcass, I knew that I had to do my cleanup again. The first thing I did was take the steamroller and I drove it to the very shores of my island and as far into the ocean as I could. I left the engine on and watched it roll its way into the ocean until I could no longer see it at the surface of the water. I walked my way back to the top of the mangled body. It was a messy sight to behold. After all, I examined the body and decided that I would have to burn it. That would be best for this one. So I went to my garage and came back with a big gasoline canister and poured it all over the remains of the crushed body and the blue tarp. I took a couple of matches and started the fire. In about an hour, everything was gone. The corpse was completely ashes at this point. I made my way back to my garage, and I brought a broom and dustpan to sweep up the ashes and any other remains. Usually I am on top of things when it comes to cleaning up my kill site. However, this time, for some reason or another, I was sloppy with my work. I suppose this time around I was way too excited about the murder. With Harry now out of the way, I still had one issue. His crew at some point would start to ask questions. So all I did was take a few screenshots of the text that I told you guys about earlier. I sent it to his crew members so they would see just how much of a piece of shit their boss really was. I also wrote them a note saying Harry confided in me and he felt bad about what he did to them and to his wife, that he couldn't bear to tell them himself, and that he asked me to mail them his phone as a way to confess. Also in the note I mentioned that I offered to take Harry fishing as a way to help take his mind off of some of his problems. As we went out to the ocean to fish, we ran into some rough waters on the way back, and he fell in. Because Harry refused to wear a life jacket, I tried to throw him a life preserver, but the waters were horrible, and he could not grab a hold of it in time. Harry just went under and was gone. I sent the cell phone and the note in a small package. I'm guessing they must have been pleased to hear about their boss's fate, because I never heard word one back from them ever again. I hoped that someone else took over their crew, and it would be someone decent and legit as well. After that, I gathered all the ashes up, and I made my way back to the pig pen. I sprinkled them all into the pig's slop from the day before. This irony was that this human was a piece of shit, and would end up being literal shit. That was about it for this murder. My urge to kill was met again for a long time after this. Joe stopped talking for a moment to stretch out both of his arms and let out a big, long yawn. Carol and Sam were so mortified with Joe's latest story that they both had forgotten about the candle that was lit. Carol, in a panic, looked at the candle to see where it was. The candle looked like it was about halfway burned down, which meant they were running out of time. They only had their current candle and one whole candle left. If they couldn't finish Joe's interview in time, the ghost would come back. Carol raised her wrist to check the time on her watch. It was about 12:30 p.m. They showed up around 10 a.m., so they were at this for a couple of hours. Sam was starting to feel sick again due to his need of the potassium he hadn't had for a while. Carol felt like they needed to take a short break. The longer the break was, however, the worse off they were going to be. Sam looked at Carol, then Joe, and excused himself out of the room. He told them that he was going to head back to the cafeteria. However, before Sam left, Carol asked him if he could bring back a sandwich and some water. Sam nodded his head and headed out. Carol looked back at Joe and said, "Well, as my partner is taking a short break, we might as well hear about your next murder. After all, we sort of need to hurry." Carol gave a slight smirk. Joe returned Carol a twisted smile and said, "Okay, very well. I'll tell you this one. I feel like I got very creative." Carol thought to herself, "Oh, I can't wait to hear this one." She stretched her legs and proceeded to listen. Little did the three of them know that trouble was surely brewing for them all. Okay, Slash-a-Holics, this has been Murder Report Chapter 7 by James Acosta. Had a lot of fun narrating this one. Every time I think he can't top Sloppy Joe's next kill, or the last kill, he knocks another one out of the park. This guy is sadistic and my kind of slasher. Looking forward to see what happens with the rest of his stories, how it all excuse me, how it all ties into the ghosts that are haunting them still. They don't have much candle left, and he seems like he's still got quite a bit of story to tell. So yeah, the stakes are getting pretty high here, and really enjoying it. The reason it's been so long since the last chapters I put out is because, I don't know, a lot of you probably have noticed this. In the past month, I have re-edited and re-uploaded every single book here on the channel, the unabridged versions. Trying to get them modernized, get rid of old giveaways and old information that was in these uploads, and bring them up to more of a modern setting, and also no information at the beginning or end of them that can be dated in the future. They've got some cool new intros and outros by Evan. His channel is in the description below. He's done a great job with those. Thank you so much, Evan, for all that. And I've been using Suno for some fun songs on the channel, making some songs about Slash-a-Holics and such. Yeah, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. And I can't ask you this enough. If you can, please join as a channel member or join as a Patreon to help support the channel. Because without you guys, the channel's going to cease to exist eventually. So I'd really appreciate all the support I can get here on the channel, whether that be joining as a patron, joining as a channel member, spreading, even if you just subscribe and spread the word and take part, clicking the like button and commenting on videos. That goes a long way to help the channel as well, to get us recommended more out there in the algorithm. And also, if you're a fan of my writing, Friday the 13th Quarantine is going to be available in physical media very soon on Amazon. And right now you can actually get physical copies or an ebook of A Nightmare on Elm Street Celestial Slumber, my full-length novel, Freddy X. Information is in the description and pinned comment, as well as the information to donate to the channel by becoming a member, a patron, or doing a one-time donation through PayPal or Cash App. Any and all of that is a big help to the channel. You can even order a Cameo video for like $7.50. We're on Cameo. So however you want to do it, it would be greatly appreciated. I'll be back a lot sooner with more of this book. We're over halfway through it, and I cannot wait to see how it turns out. Be sure to thank James Acosta in the comments below. Let him know what you think of the book so far, and I'll be back very soon with more. Until then, this has been your friendly neighborhood 80s slasher librarian saying thanks for listening, be excellent to each other, And remember, the sun never sets on those who ride into it. See you next time.
Midnight calls out threaded in black. Sound of whispers, no turning back. The 80s slasher library reads. Echoes of terror sown into the seas. Calling all slash-a-holics unite. Under moon's cruel waxy light. Jason, Freddy, Michael run free. Chucky's laughter haunting me. Leather pages bound in grime. Out of print, blood frozen in time. Voices crawling from the past. Every chapter a scream that lasts. Calling all slash-a-holics unite. Under moon's cruel waxy light. Jason, Freddy, Michael run free. Chucky's laughter haunting me. Leather pages bound in crime. Out of print, blood frozen in time. Voices calling from the past. Every chapter a scream that lasts. Each tale turns razor sharp. His voice strings you like a harp. Silent screams behind locked doors. Librarian knows you're craving more. Fingers clutch at well-worn spines. Bleeding thought through shadow lines. Out of print but never out of mind. He reads the fears you'll always find. Calling all slash-a-holics unite. Under moon's cruel waxy light. Jason, Freddy, Michael run free. Chucky's laughter haunting me. Leather pages bound in crime. Out of print, blood frozen in time. Voices crawling from the past. Every chapter a scream that lasts. In me, each in me, in me. It's been enough. In me.
Each tale turns razor sharp. His voice strings you like a harp. Silent screams behind locked doors. Librarian knows you're craving more.
Fingers clutch at well-worn spines. Bleeding thought through shadowed lines. Out of print but never out of mind. He reads the fears you'll always find.